All right, thank you very much. It's a very honor to be here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about something that I think affects everybody in this room, okay? Which is the next digital revolution that we are literally on the brink of. So it's kind of like if I said to you guys in the late 90s, I think most of the people in the audience were adults by then, that maybe you guys should look at this internet thing, right? But I think that the opportunity in this revolution is actually 1,000 times greater, because not only does it actually have the technology to affect the way people do business, but now from a financing perspective, it's also something that's disruptive. So today I'm going to try to give you a whirlwind tour of a lot of the things that Alex has said before, and in the context of the implications of this technology and the business models and the financing that's going to change the world right now, right? So before we do that, we have to first talk about the history, okay? So the first internet revolution was about digitization, right? You took a bunch of offline businesses with all their data and books and databases and silos, and you made that available online. And predominantly, you made it free for everyone, and the business model now became e-commerce and the transaction of data. Okay, now that has totally transformed the world. The Internet 2.0 was started kind of in the sort of the mid-2000s until just about now. Is about the mobile internet. So now everybody has a smartphone in their pocket. Facebook and the rise of Instagram and all these new ways of social connectivity and the data that's involved with that. That was the second internet revolution. Al talking about the third internet revolution, which is about the semantic web, or knowledge of data. So now we have that data, what we can do with it? We can do a lot of big data things. We can use the rise of AI and to be able to develop context and be able to make data-driven decisions based on what's happening in the world. And that is an ongoing revolution that's happening now. Now today, I want to talk about what I call Internet 4.0, okay? The digitization of the world's assets. So much like information was digitized in the first revolution, now we are digitizing assets, okay? Anything of value. And now we are able to trade that value to anybody else in the world. Okay, so if the world's economy, an economy in general, is about the transfer of value. So now we're talking about something very, very fundamental in the world. And the technology that exists today, blockchain, is the thing that's going to enable that to be able to have friction-free transfer of value in a trusted way between people. All right, so the person that developed this technology 10 years ago is a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't actually know who he is, okay? But he developed something, as we all know now, as Bitcoin, 9-page white paper that was put on the web, which now has spawned a $500 billion market. And that's with just less than 1% of the people in the world trading it. Okay? And we are now on the brink of being able to have the rest of the world start to partake in this. This is going to happen now. You guys are at the front row seats of that happening now. It's a perfect time to get involved. All right, so let's just talk about blockchain just for a sec. Okay? The basic idea is when you're transferring value, it's about trust, right? I don't trust the guy next to me, but I trust the bank, right? So I give the order to the bank holds my money, and the bank does the transaction. It keeps a ledger, okay, a spreadsheet, if you will, of what the transactions look like. And because it's a trusted party, this is how the world works, okay? Now, the idea with blockchain, without getting into the technology, is now we don't need a centralized authority. We don't need a bank. The ledger goes into the cloud, into the sky, and everybody can see that, okay? And because of that, it's transparent, okay? Everybody can actually see it. You can't play games. If I transfer money to you, the whole world knows. All right? It's immutable, means I can't go and change the record once it's now in the sky that everybody can see. And that means trust can occur between two different parties without a centralized authority. We call that decentralization is the key word. And this is actually very important because now we can get rid of the middlemen and everything. Okay? Banks are the most profitable companies in the world. They make billions of dollars, but if you think about what actually they do, all they're doing is changing that ledger. And if you can disintermediate them, then you can get rid of not just banks, but all sorts of centralized institutions. Facebook is a centralized institution. Amazon is a centralized institution. Google, all these companies, they own all your data. And they profit handsomely from that data. And you don't control that data, okay? Now, with the blockchain technology that exists, we can get rid of all these guys, we can still have the same function. We will still have Facebook transferring social media. We'll still have the ability to search. We'll have the same capabilities, but now the power goes back into the people's hands. And this is the power of what blockchain enables. Okay? So there's a company called Ethereum, it's a foundation, which then took this idea of blockchain and created what we call smart contract technology. Okay? So now, in addition to this ledger, we have programmable, essentially think of them as legal contracts, okay, which allow people to transact, again, without a middleman, and also not be able to change the contract once it occurs. All right? So that technology has now created what we call a token economy. Ethereum has allowed the ability for anybody in the world to now issue their own token for any value you want. Okay? You can tokenize any type of asset. You can be the central bank and create your own token. Anyone in this room spending half an hour can now tokenize whatever they want, okay? And create a whole new ability to transfer this value, and importantly, be able to fundraise. So in the summer of 2017, which is just a couple years ago, okay, this became a huge phenomenon. We call it initial coin offering, okay, ICO, which means that anybody can now fundraise without the need to actually do a very expensive IPO, okay? And the top companies in the world were raising billions of US dollars in the matter of minutes, okay? So hundreds of millions of dollars. The average ICO in 2017 was something like $25 million, okay? Based off of nothing. Actually, there's a lot of hype, okay? And the first killer app blockchain came out, which is centralized exchanges. Now, there are hundreds of exchanges in the world, and what they do is they allow these digital coins to be exchanged. Okay? Of course, there was a little bit of a bubble, right? So Bitcoin, as the first cryptocurrency, the granddaddy of it all, went from essentially zero to $20,000 per coin, spawning this $500 billion market, and then immediately crashed last year in 2018, but now has gone back up to about $10,000 a coin. So this digital gold that Alex was talking about is something that's just getting started. So you have to put it in context, right? Internet also went through a dot-com bubble. Okay? There was $3 trillion in the dot-com crash that crashed down to 1/3 of its value, $1 trillion. Okay? So even though you guys have probably heard, Bitcoin's a scam, ICOs are a scam, certainly there's a lot of that happening today. However, much like the first internet after the dot-com bubble, that's when Google came out. That's when eBay came out. That's when Amazon came out. Okay? Likewise, the real institutionalized, dependable companies are now going to come out in this phase. Okay? So it's exactly a repeat of history. As you know, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? So the key aspect of this is regulation. Okay? As of last year, SEC in the US, FINMA in Switzerland, all the world's major regulatory bodies have come in to regulate this. Okay? And when you regulate it, that means that you deal with things like KYC, you call it know your customer. We have to know that the customer is doing valid business and is not doing things like anti-money laundering, which is a big concern. So now all that's fixed, which means we are now on the brink, literally this year, okay, where all the institutional companies in the world, which includes Wall Street and every Wall Street component equivalent in the world, is now coming in big time into this economy. Okay, Nasdaq is already trading Bitcoin's futures. Goldman Sachs bought a crypto exchange. I know we have friends who have indicated that Goldman Sachs is heavily recruiting for its crypto trading business and hiring anybody in the space in preparation for the big move into this economy. JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, famously said Bitcoin is a scam, now created his own JP Morgan coin. Right? And even the most traditional institutions like pensions and endowments now all have Bitcoin exposure, right? Stanford, Yale, different pension funds, all are now getting into the game. So what that means is that less than 1% of the market is now going to be institutionalized money flooding into this economy. Okay? So I view that this economy, again, the dot-com bubble was a $3 trillion market. Okay? This will be a 10x or 100x market in the next half decade. This is what I predict. Right? We have exchange-traded funds. The whole world is now developing their own digital legislation. And I hope that Pakistan, as mentioned by Mr. Dada, can leapfrog and take a lead in this digital economy and really provide opportunities for foreign direct investment into the country and the like, right? Facebook also got into the game recently. Facebook, 2.3 billion people, so already a top economy bigger than China if they come online, causing a lot of ruckus because in an unregulated environment, they can completely disrupt governments. China, I do a lot of fintech research. China just released their own crypto. The top economy in the world has been researching this since 2014. Has released their own cryptocurrency, a digital RMB, if you will, okay, which has been released to all the top banks, and including Alibaba and Tencent and things like that, creating the possibility for this to flood the world. Okay, as you know, CPEC, $65 billion project, is the central pillar for China's One Belt One Road strategy. Now, they want to create a digital reserve currency to be able to transact in that, and they want all that money to flood down into the corresponding countries, of which CPEC is a major contributor. So now we have the potential for a lot of Chinese money and any other kind of money to flood into the Pakistan economy based off of this. So this is something that we should look at. And because of this, I was, for the last 2 years, I've been at Davos, roping in the top technology experts in blockchain, the regulatory people, the people who are doing the legal stuff, all together in consortia so that we can actually do this. Okay, and so I come here today, Ernest, including Ernest and Alex and a few of our other peers and partners, with the full stack ability to allow any organization or any company here in Pakistan to take part of that revolution. All right, so let me just go on and say what the implications of this technology is. So 2019 is what we call the year of the STO. So remember there's this thing called ICO, right? Completely unregulated, okay? Now there's a regulated cousin, a much better behaved cousin called STO, Securitized Token Offering, okay? Allows you to fundraise, allows you to securitize any asset in a regulated way. And that's why Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and all these other big guys are coming into space, okay? Because now what you can do is you can digitize any asset you can think of, whether it be fine art, which actually is a $65 billion market and one of the best performing alternative asset classes. But I would imagine anybody in this audience, only a few of you have the wherewithal to invest in that market. Now we can actually take that asset, digitize it into a token, and allow anybody in this room to trade peer-to-peer from their real estate. It's a $230 trillion market, representing 60% of global wealth. Any of you guys try to conduct real estate transactions cross-border, forget about it. Leave it to the big guys. Now, all have parts of this exposure. So any asset, which includes commodities like gold or oil, Apple, shares of Apple, any type of asset, physical or virtual, can now be digitized and made friction-free. So that means that we can start to create the financialization of any asset on a scale that's unknown. Okay? That means I can actually go and create an exchange, create a market, create financial instruments like derivatives and things on top, use AI to automatically trade. All the things of the traditional financial industry can now be brought to bear on this. Right? So that, again, that means that you guys have the ability to, in whatever domain that you have, okay? You guys are running big companies here, you guys have ecosystems, you have trade finance, you have commodities, you have pharmaceuticals, whatever the asset it is, now the technology at a press of a button will allow you to create your own digital asset and be able to find liquidity to fund things and to trade things at a massive scale, unprecedented in the world. Okay? Now, the key aspect of this is that the legal has to get up. If I attach a crypto token to a piece of real estate, what's the legal look like? Well, this is a one-year concept, but now we figured it out. We take the assets, we stick it into what we call a custodial trust, like a trust fund baby type trust, right? Which is a legal entity which can hold any type of asset. Then the legal innovation now is to take that crypto asset and attach it legally to that trust vehicle. So now a fractional ownership of that trust can be had represented by a crypto token. Okay? So a couple examples of this, okay? We are working with the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi to tokenize real estate, right? Imagine if I can fractionate the ownership of this slum area, and in this case, Mumbai, second largest slum area in Mumbai, fractionate into 100 million pieces. Now that token can be used to incentivize other stakeholders. So if we want to create a subway station into it, we can get 10% of the tokens to the subway station. The people who are displaced will give 10% to the tokens, so they feel like they can take value of the land that they've sat on for potentially centuries. Right? So now we have a way through financialization, okay, to align stakeholders to create new business models where real estate deals and other deals can get done. Another example is fine art that we're working on. I'm working with the cultural director of Beijing to fractionalize the ownership of fine art. Again, the best performing asset class there is last year, right? The returns are huge. Okay, so what we can do now, this is the Salvador Mundi. It's last verified work of Da Vinci, and it's sold for $500 million US to a Middle Eastern family. Okay. You guys would love to take a piece of this. You don't know how. We can now fractionate the ownership of that, and you guys can be trading it on your smartphones. Another example is investment funds. Okay? If you're an investment fund, and I'm an LP, I'm an investor into the fund, I will invest $10 million into a fund, and I have to just forget about that money for 7 years. The return does not come back until after the fund dissolves the funds, counts the profits, and then distributes. Okay? But now I can tokenize that. I can actually create a token representing a fractional ownership of that fund, and now at any moment in time, if I need liquidity or anything like that, I can now go and trade it on the open market. So there's a whole new banking business, okay, investment banking business that is going to grow around this industry. Finex is the investment bank I'm associated with, but certainly the Goldman Sachs and everybody in the world are now going to every traditional industry and then being able to fractionate the ownership of whatever assets you want. Any ecosystem with any transfer of value can be tokenized, and then you can start to trade it. Right? So that means that there's huge amounts of access to global capital, like unprecedented. FDI is a big deal for Pakistan. Okay? Right now, that money cannot come into Pakistan, but if the world was digitized in this way, it can come in like that tomorrow, directly into your smart wallets in your pocket. Okay? Second, investment opportunities for the masses. Okay? Now your grandma who wants a piece of real estate in Dubai can now purchase that and not worry about the legal and all these details. All that is under the cover, and all you can do is just trade these virtual coins in real time. Markets are now 24/7, and everything can be traded point to point on your smartphone. Okay? So what that means is massive liquidity. Okay? Massive liquidity across all markets, across all industries can now happen. The next speaker, Ernest, I'll just give a plug for him, is creating this financial infrastructure, a company called Interstellar, which allows you now to allow banks to transmit digital assets to each other, allows people to transmit digital assets, and allows any company to be able to tokenize that. Right? So it's a very, very important infrastructure. So I'm going to end off by saying that we're at the precipice, okay, of the next major digital revolution, okay? It's the perfect storm opportunity, okay, because regulation has now come in, which means the big boys are on tap to come in but have not come in yet, okay? The technology infrastructure is now mature, all right, with companies like Interstellar and others, right? The legal infrastructure to enable this is happening, and now all that remains is traction in terms of industry. Across all industry, you guys can, I'll be hard-pressed to find a single person in this room who does not apply to this technology. Much like the original internet is applicable to all industries and all people. It doesn't matter if you're baking bread, right? Because if you're transferring value, which is what all economies and all businesses do, then this thing will allow you to fundraise, allow you to take your illiquid asset and find investors and buyers to trade it, to create financial instruments and everything beyond. So I believe that this is the fundamental technology which will enable Pakistan to transform. And I'm hoping to work with the government. I'm hoping to work with industry leaders here to be able to enable a bright, blue future for Pakistan. Thank you very much.